Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to our ranking member as well for hosting this hearing over on your side. It's great to be over here. Over and over again, we continue to see Chinese companies systematically working around and continuing to take advantage of our laws to boost their growth while cutting us out of that process. They've been playing long games in this case, and too often we have been used and outmaneuvered. And as we've heard discussed today many times, American retirements and investments have flowed directly into these companies that strengthen the CCP's surveillance state and in many cases are tied directly to forced labor violations. And that's why I recently reintroduced my bill, the Protecting American Industry and Labor from International Trade Crimes Act, which again empowers the Department of Justice, gives them the tools that they need to better be able to go after the bad guys, to detect, investigate, and prosecute these trade crimes, especially those that are frequently committed by the CCP, duty evasion, transshipment, forced labor violations, all the things that we've talked about today that disadvantage American workers and American businesses. So, Mr. O'Leary, my first question is for you today. How do CCP state subsidies and the dumping practices that they regularly utilize distort our markets, and how do they hurt our domestic manufacturers and producers, particularly in rural communities like mine in Iowa?
Well, the number one way there's damage done is not abiding by IP laws. That's probably the most long-term damage that has occurred because it's small increments. Undoubtedly, if you go into your constituency and ask entrepreneurs over the last 40 years, you're going to find many companies that were knocked off in China and nothing was done about it. Some cases they're bankrupt now as a result of. You got to think about something. An American company that spends, let's just use small numbers, $10 million in developing their product, and all the R&D, and they're going to have to amortize that over the life period of maybe 5 years on that product. And they put it on the market, and it immediately is a hit. And that would be defined by 5 million in annual sales. 5 million annual sales. Generally, you're going to make, 15 to 20%. You can support a family. You can grow the business. The minute that's seen by China, particularly if it's a weather tech or something so simple that can be knocked off, China did not participate in spending on the R&D. They didn't participate in developing the mold in some cases at all. They simply let the American company prove the market, and then they knocked it off. Right. If that happened stateside, within hours, I'd shut that down. It'd be easy. You could hire a local lawyer to do that. Mm-hmm. Can't do it in China. And so incrementally over the years, if there's one thing that we could change in this current narrative with China would be to establish reciprocal IP laws and ways to litigate them and resolve complaints, which was intended in 2020 with the WTO agreement that they agreed to. And then there would be very punitive penalties if that was not abided by. And the best penalty is disallowing access to American capital markets.
And in my district, it was actually seed that they stole out of our cornfield. So you talk about spending billions of dollars on that IP and the R&D that goes into it. They were actually caught in an Iowa cornfield trying to steal the seed by the FBI, and the FBI pursued the investigation and tried to hold them accountable, actually arrested someone here in the United States. But we need more resources to be able to go after these people and actually enforce the trade laws that we do have on the books and, of course, protect these key industries from that unfair competition. And as you said, they just come in and they let us prove the market, they let us do all the work, and then
I've learned something in the last 2 years you should know, and I speak to everybody in the room on this. They don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right. It's just how they do
business. That's not taught to them when they're young entrepreneurs, that there's anything wrong with stealing IP, because there's no consequence. Yeah. And the only way, when a puppy is being, well, I don't even want to use that analogy, but you got to get the stick out.
Right. And this is about protecting Main Street small businesses and those innovators.
Right.
And so let's talk about the flow of capital going to these companies that are then turning around and being used against us. We've talked about the fact that they're able to trade on our exchanges. One example, Chinese LiDAR firm, Heisai, with links, of course, to the PLA, also on the DoD blacklist. but they are still trading publicly on the New York Exchange. I actually sent a letter to the NASDAQ last year asking them why are they allowed to continue to do this and remain listed. So I want to thank the chairman for his leadership in the Senate on this issue as well. We've tried to hold them accountable here and try and limit this. But given these very clear national security concerns, Mr. Iacovella, why are they still allowed to trade on our markets when we know so very clearly that these dollars are being used against us?
Well, hopefully a new sheriff in town, 48 hours from now, they won't be. And I really hope that happens. I'll certainly do a shout out for him when he gets confirmed. I mean, this is somebody that should be enforcing the law because this is what maintains trust in the system. And I hope it happens. And there'll be very little consequence to public markets if it'll be a big wake-up call. Other exchanges will look at this, and I think there'll be a reaction in China domestically to get on board.
Mr. Iacovella, did you have anything you'd like to add there too, since we were talking about it?
No, I think Mr. Atkins will enforce the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act and the Accelerating Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act, and we will have a real understanding of what the audits were supposed to be during the period when China was on lockdown and supposedly the PCAOB went over there and conducted audits into their auditing firms. There was a number of state secret privileges that prevented them from doing what they needed to do. And I think that Mr. Atkins isn't going to tolerate that. And hopefully, these companies that have been on for almost 2 years now that are non-compliant will start to be removed. And it's possible that the exchanges are seeing the wind shift and that they can take their own regulatory action and get these people off the exchanges because there's no reason for them to have access to our capital markets.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thanks for the indulgence. I yield back.